Just a heads up, this is going to be a long story. My fiancée cheated, and not long after that, she ended up pregnant. The aftermath has been a whirlwind. I'm still stuck with this fog of doubt, tension, and way too many thoughts I can't shake. I'm looking for advice, some perspective, anything that might help me make sense of what to do next. Comments and insights are more than welcome. Now, if I were to give you the full backstory, it would take up pages. So here's the short version. We were in a long-distance relationship. Not just a casual one, we had real plans. We talked every day, non-stop messaging, sometimes 50 messages or more, and that's just the average. Every 2 or 3 months, we'd get to be together in person for 2 to 3 weeks. We lived in completely different countries, different cultures, and thousands of kilometers apart. Anyway, during one of our visits, she picked me up at the airport like usual. Everything seemed great, we were happy to be together again. We went out, got things done, bought stuff, met up with her friends. It all seemed normal on the surface. We slept together again, but this time something felt off. Little things started to bug me. The way she looked at me, some of her comments, how she touched my hand. All those tiny details started stirring a weird feeling in my gut. Even though we shared a bunch of special moments that visit, some of those little things kept nagging at me. Eventually, more details started piling up, and everything came to a head when she confessed. I'd flown back home, and 5 weeks later, while she was already pregnant, she exploded in anger during one of our chats. That's when I finally got the nerve to poke at her with one vague but carefully chosen clue, something I had been holding on to based on all those instincts and half-truths. I sent a photo that seemed harmless on its own, but it was the kind of thing that would set off someone hiding something. And it worked, it hit her like a brick. Total silence. She looked stunned. Barely got a few words out before everything crumbled. She admitted it. Just like that, the house of lies collapsed. And for the first time, I felt like the weight was starting to lift off my chest. I had already told one of my coworkers I probably wouldn't be able to focus that day. Good call, because what followed was a 3-hour phone call with her. She started by repeating something from our chat. My tears are dry, you can tell everything now. Then came the flood of truth. She told me who she slept with, when they first met, how often they saw each other that month, yes, the very same month before I visited her. They didn't use protection. She tried to justify it by saying he promised to pull out. As if that made it any better. Years ago, she gave me an STI from another fling. Back then, we weren't as committed, but still, she'd already had 4 affairs that I knew of, and never once used protection. When we dealt with that STI, I stood by her. I helped her get the medication. Took the blame walk with her. She couldn't conceive for months afterward because of it. This time, she threw in some timeline inconsistencies. Like when I asked about a previous fling, someone she had been seeing a year ago, she swore she hadn't seen him. But my gut told me otherwise. I suspected they ran into each other at a New Year's Eve party. Sure enough, they both posted from the same location. The photos had the same background, taken from the exact same angle. No way that was just a coincidence. He was smart about it, used a 24-hour disappearing story post. Just long enough to leave a clue, but not get caught. But I picked up on everything. My instincts had been screaming the truth the whole time. One thing she said stuck with me, classic cheater logic. He's not even a good guy. He just wanted to hook up. Like that somehow makes it better. I didn't respond. No point. She also claimed she didn't want to see him again, but then he showed up at her place a few days later. No invite. Just let himself in. And guess who opened the door and then her legs? She tried to soften it with something like, it was only sex. If it had been love, that would have been worse. I just listened. Didn't say a word. And no, they didn't use protection. Again. She even told him, my fiancé will be here soon, but still let him in. And then when he wanted to meet her again after I left, she got scared I'd leave her. That's the only reason she hesitated. I kept my cool through most of her confession, just asked a few quiet questions. But then I said one thing, calmly and without emotion, you don't need to worry about me leaving. I already left the day you walked me to the airport. Yeah, they hooked up in our room, on our bed, on our bedsheets. Right next to a framed photo of us together. She even ordered a surprise gift for me while he was there. They ate off plates we had hand-picked together. He saw a tattoo she got for our future kids, one we got 3 months earlier as a promise to each other. She insisted on getting it while we passed a tattoo parlor, and I convinced her to keep it small and subtle. So what was I supposed to do? What could I have done differently? We were engaged, but everything fell apart after what she did. Her choices, her behavior, those are on her. The distance between us made it harder, but in the end, it was her decisions that ruined everything. After that, I had a lot of sleepless nights. Couldn't focus at work. Some part of me felt relief that the lies were finally exposed, but mostly, I was crushed, watching our future fall apart piece by piece. We still talked, though. It felt weird. Fewer calls, fewer messages. I couldn't tell her I loved her anymore. I avoided saying anything romantic at all. I could sense her stress creeping back. Whether it was guilt, or the confusion over who the father might be, or maybe even seeing the other guy again, I wasn't sure. But something in her voice, her behavior, it all matched the pattern from the month before. She told him to forget her the day before I arrived and tried to erase everything, blocked him, deleted their chats. 10 days later, everything was back in limbo. That's when she blew up again, swearing at me out of nowhere. That's when it really hit me. There's no future here. Just more lies. More doubt. No trust left. No faith, no hope. Probably more betrayal hiding just around the corner. She changed her profile photo. Smart move, it wasn't a picture with him, but one he took of her the day they first met. It looked normal and innocent. A subtle way to send a signal to both me and him. Later on, someone pointed out her old profile photos followed the same pattern. They even helped me connect the dots, like matching cards in a memory game. Every photo tied to a different guy. With their help, I looked back and found a bunch of old posts I'd missed. Some had been up for just a few hours. One showed her switching her relationship status from engaged to single. And I completely missed it. The final blow? A story post that read, "Not sleeping alone tonight." It was a photo of her dressed up, right before she went out on a date with him. It only stayed up for an hour or two. Just long enough to hurt. What kind of person posts something like that publicly hinting they're about to cheat? Who was that message really meant for? Was it a signal to the guy she was meeting later, giving him a heads up about the night to come? Or was it just the rush of putting it out there, the thrill of making it public and secret all at once? I didn't even see that post when it first went up. I was asleep. I only found out about it later, and by then, the damage was already done. When I learned about it, my head was a mess. I was flooded with emotion, caught between thoughts that spun out endlessly. I could barely function at work. My mind just wouldn't stop. I talked to a support group, reached out to a close friend, rambled, overanalyzed, ran through every angle, every possibility, and came up empty. No version of this ended well. No clean escape. The only real answer was the one I didn't want to admit: it had to end. I needed to end this toxic mess of a relationship. I needed to stop letting myself be played for a fool. I was tired of being dragged along, lied to, betrayed over and over. This wasn't love anymore, just a mess of history repeating itself. And that dream I held onto of a future, a family with her? That had to die too. I even Googled how to end a relationship in the least painful way. I skipped past the extreme ideas that flashed through my head. I wanted the cleanest exit possible. I didn't want to be cruel. I didn't want her, or anyone, to end up in real danger. She had threatened suicide twice before. Maybe it was real. Maybe it was manipulation. Hard to tell when someone's emotions swing that violently. I didn't want to provoke anything. Ghosting seemed the safest route. I didn't want another fight. I didn't want to listen to more fake apologies. I didn't want another round of promises she wouldn't keep. I couldn't handle another breakdown from her, or another moment where she begged me to stay while I tried to keep my own sanity intact. I just wanted it all to be over. The lies, the tension, the chaos. Her, and everything she brought into my life. I needed peace. Back on the day she confessed, I honestly thought that was the end of it. But somehow, it wasn't. We kept talking, kept falling into our old rhythm. It wasn't love anymore, it was just habit. I had to remind myself daily that our relationship had already ended. I needed to stay strong. I didn't want to fall back into old patterns. One time in the past, after she crossed a line, I tried to break up with her. She responded by slapping herself in the face, over and over, crying and begging for forgiveness. Another time, she bit her own arm, just to prove how serious she was about staying honest and faithful moving forward. It was disturbing. I didn't want to risk any of that again, especially not the possibility that she'd actually hurt herself or worse. She once told me that if I ever ghosted her, she'd block me, delete everything, change her number, maybe even move away so I'd never find her. I still remember the night she said that way past midnight, right after our usual goodnight call. That day hadn't even been tense, but out of nowhere, she just exploded. Looking back, that was 2 weeks before she started cheating. The very next day, I ignored her for half a day because of what she'd said, and she backpedaled hard, texting nonstop about how much she loved me, how much our relationship meant to her. I let it slide. I forgave her. I didn't want to deal with the drama. But this time? This time I made a plan. I picked a day to cut the cord for good. I looked at everything: our shared social media, the messages, the friends we had in common, our numbers, the ways we were still connected. I tried to think ahead. I read so many posts about cheating, breakups, even revenge. I wanted to learn from others. I wanted to make sure I didn't screw this up even worse. I'll admit, I thought about getting even. I hated both of them for what they did. I read everything I could about revenge and what people got out of it. Most said it felt good in the moment, but later, it didn't fix anything. It just left them with more pain, more regret, and a bitter taste that stuck around. Part of me still wanted to expose her. Maybe tell her sister, or her best friend. Let them know exactly what she did so they wouldn't blame me when everything fell apart. Maybe I wanted them to know the truth so I could walk away with some dignity. But even that felt hollow. They were her people. They'd either take her side or tear her apart. Either way, I didn't want to be in the middle of it. So I chose to walk away. Let her tell whatever version of the story she wanted. If her friends and family wanted to believe I was the bad guy, so be it. It wasn't worth the energy anymore. I didn't want to be part of that circle. She could build whatever reality made her feel better. It was her life now. At first, I thought it might bother me what she might say behind my back, what people might think. But eventually, I realized it didn't matter. None of it would touch me anymore. I wasn't part of her story, not really. And I wasn't going to give her any more material to twist. Still, one thought keeps chewing at the back of my mind: what if the baby is mine? What if, one day, years from now, some kid shows up at my door asking about their father? Asking why I wasn't there. Asking what really happened. That possibility haunts me. I'm not prepared for that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And honestly, I have no control over it. That's her mess to deal with. If that kid ever comes looking for answers, they'll come with a version of the story that's already been shaped and twisted. Kids believe whatever they're told. And maybe one day, much later, they'll start asking the hard questions. But I've got time before that happens, if it ever does. Revenge? Nah. I'm done. I don't want bitterness. I don't want anger. I don't want to be that guy. I've already said the heartfelt goodbyes, the thanks for everything messages, the I wish you well stuff back when things blew up the first few times. Not doing that again. She used to text me every few months saying goodbye for real this time. It never was. Minutes or hours later, she'd apologize, all sweet and loving again. But this last time, this one felt different. On the last afternoon, I sent one final message. Kind words. Calm tone. My voice caught in my throat, but I knew it had to be done. I almost said something else, something sharper, but I didn't. I just let it end. Maybe I was still holding on to some hope, something meaningful, something lasting. I wanted to part ways with kindness. That last night, I sent her my usual messages: good night, sweet dreams, take care, see you in dreamland. I was driving at the time. She should have already been asleep, but she didn't respond. I had hoped my final words to her would be soft, gentle. But what came back was a flood of self-centered, angry texts. She lashed out, accusing me of things I hadn't said, pushing blame like always. I ignored most of it, nothing real, nothing grounded. I just replied something like, whatever I try to call, message, explain, it's never enough for you. I reminded her I was driving, which I had already told her. Much later, I reread her rant. One message stood out: so you think this baby isn't yours? Fine. Never come back. And when one day you realize it is yours, I'll be long gone. That hit hard. I hadn't brought up paternity, not since the day she confessed and said, I don't know who the father is. I'm sorry. And that was the moment it all started unraveling. This ending wasn't how I planned it. I'd already said my goodbyes before, heartfelt, honest, respectful. I didn't see any reason to repeat them. But still, I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. That morning, I switched into autopilot. I blocked her, deactivated everything, changed my profile. She noticed. Within hours, she fired back with a couple more nasty lines. Then I cut that final cord. Silence followed. Days of it. Maybe more. And to be honest, I was wrecked. Empty. There were moments I wanted to reach out again, but I knew what would happen if I did. It wouldn't help, it would only make things worse. My phone kept flashing, over 200 blocked calls. I mean, seriously, why does my phone even bother telling me how many times someone I blocked tried to reach me? So yeah, there's a 50-50 chance that baby is mine. And I remember that day I landed, when we were together. I touched her, and something felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Was it the way her body responded? Was it my gut warning me she wasn't really mine anymore? We had dreams. Big ones. Plans for kids. Even had a list of names picked out. But maybe she wasn't in it for the same reasons I was. Maybe she needed more excitement, more danger, another man. Maybe the long distance thing finally cracked her. I know how hard it can be. I'd been in LDRs before, but we stayed connected. Constant messages, calls, photos, daily life shared, thousands of miles apart. I'd always been there for her. Patient, supportive, listened to her stress about work, her family, her fears. I even supported her through the pregnancy symptoms, like morning sickness. And I don't say this to sound arrogant, but men like me? The ones who give that kind of unconditional love? There might only be two in her life, me, and maybe her dad. But this time, I'm done. I can't go through this again. I won't be a doormat. The month before I arrived, she randomly texted me 2, maybe 3 times telling me she didn't want me anymore. Said I shouldn't even bother coming. And then, hours later, she'd do a full 180 apologies, love notes, begging me not to leave. But the flight was already booked. I figured if she didn't show up, that would be my answer. I braced myself for whatever came next. Still, it broke me inside. Looking back, I realized her relationship status had already changed from engaged to single. I didn't even invite her to meet me at the airport. She already knew when I'd be landing. My gut told me she was with him. Maybe they had just slept together. Maybe she felt victorious, ready to cast me aside and live her new fantasy. One of the texts she sent around that time had a tone I didn't recognize. It felt like he wrote it, or at least helped. It wasn't her voice anymore. I knew her well. We wrote constantly. Maybe those breakup messages were her way of keeping me quiet during their dates, setting up a buffer so she wouldn't have to answer her phone. Later, after the confession, I saw the timing. Everything lined up. Even during that same month, she kept telling me she loved me. That she chose me. That she was committed to our future. But now, with everything clear, I realize she was never really choosing me, not with her actions. And in the end, that's what matters. Words mean nothing when they're followed by betrayal. Our dreams were twisted. The future we talked about had been altered without me knowing. We'd once talked about living together. She even mentioned small changes, subtle additions to the plan. I didn't think much of it at the time. But now? I'm pretty sure she was adjusting our plans to include him. His job. His role. The timing makes too much sense. If I hadn't been around, maybe she thought they'd carry out this life together. All I can say is, it wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare dressed up as our shared future. Even after everything, she had the nerve to say that if we broke up, we could stay friends. Stay in touch. She even said I could still come visit her even if I had a new girlfriend. Who says that? Who tries to hang on like that? There was always someone trying to split us up. One of her relatives kept feeding her garbage about me, about my background, my race, spinning lies in her head. He doesn't love you. He just wants one thing. You can do better. Use protection. Nasty stuff. I saw how it messed with her. She would block that relative sometimes and say she was done with them, but she kept going back. Listening again. Letting the poison in. Over and over. There was one moment, not long after we'd spent time together in person, where she snapped at me in a really nasty way. Barked a command like I was a kid. I calmly told her to ease up. She flipped out. You can't treat me like that. I'm not a child. Then she said, if you don't like it, leave. So I did. I stayed quiet. Packed my things. At first, she just watched, cold, detached. Then came the performance, begging, crying, blocking the door, hanging onto my leg. I caved. I stayed. But I made it clear, this wasn't going to fly anymore. Mutual respect was non-negotiable. During that same visit, I had to leave for a short business trip, just 2 days. We still texted and called, like usual. After I got back, I asked her about her day. Where she'd been. She dodged. Said she went nowhere. Stayed home. But I already knew she wasn't there. A neighbor confirmed it. I didn't press. I didn't ask again. She slept elsewhere that night. To this day, I don't know where. Or with who. My gut didn't scream affair, but who knows anymore? She'd gotten good at lying. Maybe too good. She used to send me selfies, little updates. But there was one from that month that stuck out. Her face was flushed, glowing. I didn't think much of it then. But now, I'm pretty sure she took that photo right after sleeping with him. Sent it to me like it meant nothing. We'd always talked about having kids. She was fertile, and so was I. We didn't use protection because we were planning a future. So when she got pregnant, I didn't doubt it at first. But after everything, I don't know. She never brought up abortion. I never pushed. That was her call. And she made her choice. The truth is, what's done is done. The damage is real. The betrayal can't be undone. You can't uncheat. You can't unlie. You can't unbreak trust. I know there are gaps in this story. Some things I skipped over, too personal, too detailed, too painful. And yeah, maybe I made mistakes too. But I can live with mine. They're nothing compared to what she did. The emotional roller coaster still hits me sometimes. Even if I try to act tough, I'd be lying if I said I never think about it. Sometimes, just seeing a toddler in a movie messes me up. Reminds me of what could have been. My mind replays the story. Her side. His side. My side. And sometimes I wonder how it'll all shake out years from now, when the dust has settled, when everyone's with someone new, when kids ask questions. So if you made it to the end, thanks for sticking through this. I didn't mean to spill this much. But once I started, it all just poured out. I guess part of me needed to get it out. I'm still trying to figure out what to do next. Still trying to see what the future holds. Advice, comments, or just perspective from someone outside this storm, I'm open to it.